This is video 2 of 2 for August 31st or September 1st, whichever day you happen to miss or need extra help with. We're looking at the graphs of sine and cosine. In video 1 we looked at the graph of sine and we determined these 4 key features for the graph of sine. That we had a domain from negative infinity to infinity, meaning the x values can be whatever we want. Our range was from -1 to 1, meaning our lowest value was -1, our highest value is 1. Amplitude of 1, and a period of 2 pi. So let's go ahead and look at cosine now. In class we said that you're not going to be given x values all the time, so you'll have to determine those, but for now we can say x values of 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, same ones as we used for sine. 3 pi over 4, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And so similar thing here, we're just going to plug the values into our function, replace x with our values, see what we get. So if we have cosine of 0, well 0 would be out here on our unicircle, cosine is x, so this would be 1. So our ordered pair would be 0, 1. Similar thing we did cosine of pi over 6, that's our input. Cosine of pi over 6 would be square root of 3 over 2. Again, you probably need your unit circle for this. And then we could keep going down. Pi over 4 would be square root of 2 over 2. Pi over 3, 1/2. Pi over 2, and 0. 3 pi over 4, negative square root of 2 over 2. Pi and -1. 3 pi over 2 and 0. And 2 pi and 1. Now what I would do is I would pause it and verify that you know where these ordered pairs are coming from. These are our input, those are going to be our x coordinates, but you might want to double check and make sure you know where those y coordinates are coming from. Now we're going to do a similar thing we did for sine. Again, our largest x value for cosine here is 2 pi. And then let's do similar things. This would be pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, pi over 4. And our largest y value, if you look, would be 1. And our smallest y value would be -1. And so again, we look for easy points, points that are easy to plot. We're not going to plot pi over 4, square root of 2 over 2. Because square root of 2 over 2 is an estimate. We don't really know what that is exactly. I mean, we do, but it's irrational. So let's look. So let's start with 0, 1. If I'm at 0, go up to 1. That's one of my points. I'm not going to worry about pi over 6. I'm not going to worry about pi over 4. Pi over 3, it's going to be between pi over 4 and pi over 2. A little bit closer to pi over 4. And 1/2. That might be an easier point to plot. So we plot this one here. Pi over 3, 1/2. Pi over 2, 0 right there. We'd go here. Not going to worry about that one. Pi and -1 I can plot. Pi, -1. 3 pi over 2 and 0. And 2 pi and 1. So we have these points that we obtained from our ordered pairs. And now the graph of cosine of x should look similar to sine, a little different though. Okay, so between 0 and 2 pi, this would be cosine of x. And similar, if we were to continue in the positive x direction, hopefully you intuitively make sense that it's going to keep. If you think about a unit circle and coterminal angles, we're just going around the unit circle. We went around 2 pi, now we're going to go around 2 pi again. So it's just going to start over. So it's going to go down to -1, and that's going to continue forever. It's going to keep doing that wave. Same thing here. I'm going to try and draw nice and neat. It's a little difficult, but it's alright. So again, it's going to continue in this pattern, going, it's a nice and smooth curve forever in both directions. So that should give us a hint towards the domain. Not as smooth here, but you get the idea. It's a wave. And on the one, okay. And what we can say is here at this point, similar to what we did with sine. If we look over, this is going to be pi over 2, negative. And let's think, negative pi over 2, if you look at your unit circle, negative pi over 2 would be coterminal with 3 pi over 2. They're both 0, so that makes sense. This would be negative pi. Negative pi and pi are coterminal. They both have a value at -1, a functional value at -1. Negative 3 pi over 2 would be here. Well, that's coterminal with pi over 2. If I start here, negative 3 pi over 2 is coterminal with pi over 2. Those are both 0. And then this would be negative 2 pi. Negative 2 pi is coterminal with 2 pi. The function value of 2 pi is 1. The function value of negative 2 pi is 1. So that's our sine curve. Make a little correction right there. A little bit better. That's our sine, or cosine curve. I apologize. Cosine, because we're dealing with cosine of x here. So let's talk about similarities. First, in this section, if you want to write this here in this section, I'm going to write it up here on the graph so we can have a reference point. But let's talk about similarities between sine and cosine. First, like I said, they both go forever in the x direction. Again, hopefully you watched the first video. If you didn't, I would definitely pause this, go back and watch the first video. We call that our domain. And because it goes forever in both x directions, we would say that our domain is negative infinity. Again, we can't touch infinity, so we use these parentheses, negative infinity to infinity. I would pause it, see if you can determine the range, amplitude, and period of cosine, referring back to like sine, what we talked about in the first video. I would pause it. If you don't pause it, that's fine. I'm going to keep going. Our range, that's the y values that it can touch. And we start from the bottom, work our way up. So the lowest value it can touch here at -1, it actually touches -1. So we make that a hard bracket. It goes up to 1, it touches at 1 here, here, here. So comma 1. And again, this is saying that this function will not take any values below -1 or any values above 1. It's only going to stay within that range. Excuse me. Our amplitude. So here again, from this point to there, that distance is 1. From here to here, on the wave, that distance is 1. So either way, we can say our amplitude is 1. And our period, it looks a little different, but let's look at it. So if I start here, I'm going down to -1. I'm going back up to 1, which is kind of where we started in terms of our y values for the function. And then it repeats. And where does it repeat? At 2 pi. So our period again is 2 pi. So these are key features for cosine. Here, these are the main things that we need to know. If you want to get these definitions, I can give you those in class, or you get those from a friend. But we already talked about what the period is, the amplitude, even an odd. We touched on, we didn't cover too much, and if you need a further explanation on that, I can provide that. Hopefully these are helpful. If you have questions, please feel free to email, ask questions, use the Remind app, utilize your resources.